Okay, welcome guys. Livestream number 3. Thanks for stopping by. Happy Friday. We made it. Boy, another beautiful day. Today, oh boy, I'm gonna throw a bomb, metaphorically. Of course. FBI, don't raid me. I'm gonna talk about a hot topic. I mean, who would have thought that Josh Scott, probably one of the most likable personalities on the internet in terms of in the guitar industry, people would be mad at him for talking about a pedal. Sorry, some coffee quickly. Real quickly, that chain. So I was using the Woodrow, and I had like a lot of the fuzz turned up, you know, and the EP booster and Sparkle Drive in front of it. And then a little bit of plate reverb from the Starman Flint after it, and that gives such a cool fuzz tone. I will say though, and everyone's gonna think I'm crazy, and I have this. I finished recording the Woodrow video the other day. I can feel the latency in UAFX pedals, at least the amp simulators. I don't know. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, dude, you can't feel it, dude." I can feel it, and like I'm not crazy. It's not bad, but like I can feel it. Like there's a noticeable difference in latency from that compared to an Iridium, obviously compared to a real amp. I think it's more noticeable in the Woodrow because there's like sag, because it's like a Tweed Deluxe, and so you feel the sag. And it's really it kind of throws you for a little bit if you're playing through headphones. If you're playing and you're listening to it live, like all the room reflections kind of blend it all together. But when you're listening in isolation like this, it's very noticeable. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, Josh Scott, here, let's pull up this, right? That, and then here I am. Great. So Josh Scott did this video about this pedal here, the Bad Monkey. How do I scroll this? There you go. Now you can kind of see it on screen, right? About the Bad Monkey. And the Bad Monkey was a pedal made by Digitech back in the day to simulate like a cranked amp. And it got terrible reviews. No one bought it. I remember when I was in high school when it came out, or maybe junior high. And I was in band though, and like no one. I had a Digitech like RP5, like one of those like multi-FX boards, and I think it borrowed some of the same technology, but no one liked it. All right, no one wanted this pedal. No one liked it, and it was. And he did a pedal, or he did one of those classic video comparisons, which the internet is known for. And he compared it to a Klon, and he compared it to, what is the other one? A Zen Drive. So like these classic pedals, right? And they sounded almost exactly the same. Like a $4,000, like an original Klon Centaur, compared it, a silver Klon Centaur, compared it, and like you couldn't tell when he was A-B'ing it. And if you closed your eyes, you wouldn't. A lot of like armchair engineers are like, yeah, dude, I can tell the difference in the mids. Like, okay, but close your eyes and don't know what A and B is, and you won't be able to tell. And that's his whole point. His point was, or rather, it sent a shockwave through the industry for some reason, and everyone thought that, wow, like price went up crazy. Like you could buy these Bad Monkeys for $50, and now they're selling. Then they were selling for like $600 on Reverb and eBay. So it's, and everyone got mad at Josh. They're like, how could you do that, dude? Like, I wanted this pedal, now I can't afford it. And Josh correctly said, hey man, you had 20 years to buy this thing. Like, why didn't you buy it then? Why didn't you buy it when it came out? And that's not the only pedal that can sound like that. And so there were like two like results happened. Like there's two like narratives that happened. The narrative number one is like the music industry marketing has to stop. Like it's all marketing. And then the other narrative is, see, you don't need expensive pedals. And both of those narratives are wrong. That's not the point of the video. It's not the point at all. The point of the video is use what you have and it can probably sound pretty good. Not don't buy nice things, and also not marketing is bad. Let's talk about marketing, music marketing first. Music marketing is important because if manufacturers don't market products, we won't know about them. You won't know about them. And the best way to market a product is to make a claim that it sounds good, right? Like you put millions of dollars into research and development and this and that, and you want to get it out in front of people, right? And so you got to tell them this is the product, this is what it's going to sound like. And usually you, especially in the guitar world, you like attach it to nostalgia. So like, this sounds like a cranked amp. This sounds like a transparent thing, or whatever. Like those are the words that guitarists want to hear, and that's the messaging and language that you get. Now, the onus is upon you as a consumer to figure out, is this pedal right for me or wrong for me? Now, what Josh did here is that he showed that, like, yes, like maybe you do want a Klon for like, bragging rights, but you can get a good overdrive sound from a Digitech pedal or from almost any overdrive pedal that's out there right now. I mean, I've seen these guys do the Amazon Basics overdrive. It's like $30 and it sounds good. So really it's like, you can get decent sounds. Now, if you're professional, you're probably not showing up with a Bad Monkey to a session, and you're probably not going on tour with a Bad Monkey. You're probably going with something a little more, well, maybe you go on tour with the Bad Monkey. The problem is that, like, if you're on tour and your Bad Monkey breaks, you might not be able to find another Bad Monkey. So usually you go where, like, the gear you bring on tour is, like, if whatever the Guitar Center is there would also have it in stock. That's why it's good to also like have like somewhat modern things. You never want vintage pedals on your pedal board. You can have vintage amps, but like usually not vintage pedals. Anyway, so that's the point about marketing. Now the second thing, so marketing is important. Okay, that's the point. The marketing is, you have to market your products, otherwise they don't sell and none of us will buy it. And that's why it's so much better to get YouTube people like me involved, but not just me, but like anyone, because it can give kind of like a personal touch to like okay, like this brand says, like Warm Audio, for example, they came out with their Centaur, their version of the Klon. It's like, okay, like they say it sounds like a Klon, but I know what Alex sounds like and what he can get out of his pedals. Let's hear Alex play it, and if Alex can get a good sound, then I'm gonna buy it. So not to say that I'm like a deciding factor in it, but like if you know someone else's brand, it can add veracity to like whether or not this product will work for you. So marketing is important. It's like, otherwise these companies go out of business. Like marketing is usually 30 to 40% of a company's spend, and for good reason, because it's impossible to get in front of people and you have to constantly remind them, hey, buy this, hey, buy this. It's annoying, I know, it's frustrating, but like these companies need to market. Like you can't do it with word of mouth. You can't put out an ad. I mean, ad in a newspaper is marketing, but you can't like do it with like I just hope people find me. That just doesn't work. It's never worked, actually. Number two is that you don't need to buy expensive things. Like this is something that's like so classic on like all the gear forums, like Gearspace, or the comments section of YouTube, where it's like someone will post something expensive, maybe not even that expensive, not like prohibitively expensive, but like something that's not considered like an entry-level product, right? Like a $2,000 guitar, like expensive for a beginner, but for a professional, like, yeah, that's probably what you would want, or for like someone who has money too. And then the know-it-all guy comes in, and he's usually like used to be a door guy at some music venue, right? In his like late 20s. He was in a like a noise rock band, but like the band fell apart. This is like your typical commenter guy, right? He's never put out an EP. He's never put his own music out. He's not a session guy. Like no one hires him, but he's got a lot of opinions, right? And his main opinion is you don't need good gear to sound good. And it's like one of the most frustrating things I always read. I'm like, why would someone say that? It doesn't make any sense. If you don't need nice gear to have it sound good, why did Quincy use a Neve console? Like, it doesn't make any, like, what do you mean? Like, of course good gear sounds good. Now, do you need that? Maybe, maybe not. Like, there's a lot of people who can produce just in their bedrooms, but you got to be really good to do that. That's the one thing that people always forget. It's like, to get stuff sounding really good in an untreated room or with like a limited production, you got to be very hardworking and very talented. But to make up for that, that's why there's equipment that can help you like kind of shave off the edges. Now, like, of course, like you don't want to ramp up too quickly in like your acquisition of gear, but sometimes you need to. Sometimes it's like, hey, I need a nice studio mic. I can either buy the $200 one, which only gets me like 5% better than my crappy one, or I can buy $1,000 one, which will probably last me the next 20 years, like, and it'll suit almost all of my recording situations. And so, like, never take purchasing advice from someone who has never put out anything. Like you, so for the viewer who's confused, so what are you saying, Alex? Like, buy a Bad Monkey? Don't buy a Bad Monkey? No. But what I'm saying is, like, find out what your needs are in your studio or your music career, or like even your hobbyist career. That's still something that's important to you. Find out what you need and see if you can, like, really, if you're hitting the limit of your current equipment, you have to buy something. That's just how it works. I used to be a photographer, and I would shoot, commercial things for other companies and video and stuff like that. And, I would use my gear until my client would say, like, hey, that's not good enough. I'm like, okay, I got to buy something else. You just can't get by on like a point and shoot, your whole career if you're going to be considered a professional. And as frustrating as it is, when a client sees a really big camera on set, they go, good, my money's being well spent. I hired this guy and he's got professional gear. And that's how it works when you're working with other people. Sometimes you have to walk the walk in terms of like the equipment you have. Now, there are other random guys that I see on Broadway down here in Nashville where they're playing like some beat up, Roland Cube and like a Squier Strat, and they sound amazing. They sound so good. And they have like just like a bunch of random pedals on the floor. And it's like covered in beer, right? And they sound so good. There are those guys, but most people are not those guys. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, some people are Michael Jordan. Most people are not Michael Jordan. In fact, there's only one Michael Jordan. So don't take advice from, don't take advice from guys who haven't put themselves into the ring, okay? Because they don't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to tell other people, don't spend money, don't get invested in stuff. And they don't have any skin in the game. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, their opinion does not matter, should not matter. Okay, end of my rant. And if you're one of those grumpy guys, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to attack you. But my advice would be to lighten up. Let people buy nice stuff. Who cares if other people buy stuff? And I said this in my Woodrow video. It's not out yet. But all the pros I know, they don't give a crap about what other people are playing. They don't care what other people's equipment are. They don't say you shouldn't buy that. They are so focused because they don't get paid for that. They get paid for what they sound like, not what other people sound like. So they have to buy gear that makes them sound good. So if you want to be professional, focus on your sound. Don't focus on what other people's sounds are, and improve it where you can within reason. Okay, rant over. The other thing, I'm sorry. There's one more part to this. Jim Lil, you guys know this guy, right? Like, where does guitar tone come from? He puts out like one video a month, and it's always really eye-opening. But I think everyone needs to understand the point of his videos. So this guy, right? What was the class? This one. Where does the tone from an amp come from? You said. Okay, this is an ad. So we'll wait for that ad to be done. She-Hulk. Okay. Here we go. So this guy. You guys have seen these videos, right? Jim Lil.
My name's Jim. I'm a musician in Nashville, and I'm interested in learning where guitar tone comes from. So this year I've done videos on the electric guitar, sustain, strings, scale length, and speaker cabinets, which led to me figuring out which...
Okay, so this guy, his whole shtick, and it's a great shtick. He makes really entertaining, great, fun video. They're really fun to watch, and they're really interesting. But what he does is he basically breaks down, like, all the things about guitar tone, where it comes from, where it doesn't. And he's also a session guy here. I think he does more road stuff than session stuff, but still, he definitely knows what he's doing. He's a pro. And he breaks it down like every amp, like the amp chain sounds a certain way. Suki's, yes, you're absolutely right. An EQ in front of an overdrive, you can cover like 95% of all the tones you would ever need. And then if you want to throw another EQ after the amp, now you're done. Like, there's like it's it. It's everything you would ever need. But anyway, so Jim Lil is talking about guitar tone, right? And he says, he does one on pickup height, and like it basically tries to nullify that. He does wood type, he nullifies that. He does speakers. Now, speaker was a big one because speakers affect the tone in an insane way. And I've talked about this before with IRs, but like speakers are a huge change. But that his most recent one was does a guitar, like what's the room sound? What's the sound like in the room? And so again, all these same guys who commented like you don't need nice stuff are now saying, see, Jim Lil proved it that it doesn't matter what pickup. Like it actually does. It does matter. And that's actually what Jim Lil says too. Like they're completely missing Jim's point. Jim's point is like what you have in front of you will matter, but it might not matter as much as you think. But if it helps you play better, buy it. Like that is his whole point. If it helps you as a player, because at the end of the day, the thing that's, and this is what Josh and Jim and what's the other guy, Michael Westbrook, they all say, the end of the day, the biggest thing that's holding you back in your career is your skill, not your gear. You're not playing enough. You're not practicing enough. You're not writing enough. You're not on the road enough. That is what's holding you back. Okay? And then the gear can help that. But it's like, we're talking like 1% from gear. Like gear is like a 1% increment, plus or minus. But the big thing is you're not practicing enough, you're not playing enough, and you're not writing enough. And that's what Jim kind of exposed is like, yeah, like you can help if it helps your playing, do it. Now I will take some. Well, how do I say this? I am not sold on the wood and the wood type yet, because if we're saying, a lot of people say like wood tone doesn't matter, fretboard tone doesn't matter, pickup height doesn't matter, and that just completely flies in the face of like the physical world and like physics, how physics work. Okay, so it's like resonance and harmonic frequencies are evident within solids, right? And the way sound travels through the air and is captured, is affected by the physical nature of the things around it. Like you cannot discount that. That's what a microphone does, right? If you record in a stadium, it sounds different than you record in a small room because of the physical ramifications of our Newtonian world we live in, right? So I think there need to be more tests on tonewood. Or actually, there doesn't need to be more tests on tonewood, because like I've actually never bought a guitar based on the wood. But to say that wood doesn't matter, and to say that the wood of the neck doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? No, does it matter? Not as much as we think, probably. But I mean, it's hard to tell. And if it's a placebo effect, that's still it still matters. Like a placebo effect is still significant. So like we have to take that into account. So don't discount like, oh, it's all, again, it gets into that whole thing where people say all marketing from music companies is bad. It's not true. Like they have to market it. And there are, like, maybe they over exaggerate in some ways, but it's upon you as a buyer to make sure that it fits what you need. UAFX, Andrew Miller. Hey Alex, you mentioned earlier that you find the UAFX pedals to be laggy. Would you still recommend the Iridium or the Ruby or Dream? The Iridium has, there's like 2 videos out on YouTube where it shows that the Iridium has I think half the lag time. And I think the only one I really notice it on is the Woodrow. And because of I think it's because it's the sag in the pedal. Like it's modified, like it's a 5Y3 tube rectifier modeled. So like there is sag in that. And I think that makes it more pronounced. Though I would recommend an Iridium for other reasons, not because of the lag. The lag still isn't significant enough. But I would recommend it for tonal reasons, or for, like, if you're doing MIDI, like it's an Iridium all day. Like that's that. But if you really just want that like perfect Dream black panel Fender sound, you can't beat the Dream. Like the Dream is the best sounding Fender modeler I've ever heard, but it's only that. Whereas I think the Iridium is a really nice neutral platform. The round channel, it's so neutral. It's so, it can take every kind of overdrive, and then you can load whatever IR you want in it. So like if it's all in one board solution, and you can monitor from the front with headphones if you're on the road. I think the operation side of it is what makes it distinct. And although the Ruby's really cool. And again, if you really want an authentic Vox sound, that's it. There's one more thing though. And I talk about this in the Woodrow video. That's going to come out, I think, not next week, because I'm going to be out of town, but the week after. There's like a weird crackle. Here, I'll show you. Okay. There's a weird crackle on UAFX pedals. And only one person has ever commented on it. And I'm surprised that's only been one. You hear that high fizz that kind of fades away? Hear that fizziness? That fizziness, whether that's, I guess that's speaker cry or speaker breakup. I don't know what that is. Or like it could also be like the crackle of the power amp tubes. But that is present in all the UAFX pedals. And if you don't like that sound, do not get those pedals, because that is not... there's no way to get rid of that, even at the cleanest settings. So I'm assuming that's power amp breakup, maybe. But it's like a weird kind of fizzy rattle, and it's on every one. There's another thing on the UAFX pedals that is only a small downside. It doesn't matter to most people, but sometimes it does to me. Bluetooth is always on in UAFX pedal emulators, and I think they're working on a patch to get rid of that. But that will pick up frequencies. And it will pick up. I've had it where it's picked up all sorts of random noise, or it sends noise through the channels, through my DAW and my preamp. So it's another thing to take into consideration. Magnuson, absolutely budget-friendly underdog pedals. Like, you're absolutely right. That is Josh's point. You can make great music with the gear that you have. Don't think you need to get a Klon, right? I'd love a Klon. Who wouldn't? Like, if someone gave you a Klon, you'd be like, thank God, this is awesome. But if you don't have a Klon, you can still get those great tones. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. I feel like my Boss Super Overdrive can sound like, I was like, that sounds like my Boss Super Overdrive. I have an old one. And if you crank that, I don't have it hooked up right now. Actually, I don't even know where that pedal is. But if you crank that, an old Boss Super Overdrive, like, it's really like a great creamy overdrive tone. And when he's playing the Bad Monkey, I'm like, I have that sound. That's like a $40 or $50 pedal, I think, maybe 60. I mean, it's used, it's like 30. But then, like, and then the Joyo Torin, like, it sounds very close to that too. Again, if you play with the EQ post or pre, like, you're done. It's done. Like, you can sound really good. Yeah, Andrew, hopefully that helped, man. Hopefully that helped. Now, I want to... so we talked about Jim Lill. We talked about the Bad Monkey thing. We talked about grumpy guys who... actually, I have a funny story. So, like, when I was first playing, I used to play these happy hours at this bar called Nevin's Live in Chicago. And one of the bar manager was like, hey, man, like, I'd love for you to play some evenings now, too. Like open up some of these shows. And I was like shocked. I'm like, really? That's crazy. So I started playing, and then eventually he's like, hey, I'll be your manager. I'm like, oh, right on. And he's like a great guy. He was a great drummer too. Showed me a lot about the music industry. And then he helped me get a band together, and we started playing. And there was this door guy there that was always on my case. He would always have some snarky comment about my music or whatever it was. And like, he wasn't in a band. He was the door guy. Like, he was there to make sure people got in safely, that people were 21, and that was it. Like, he wasn't the music critic of the venue. He wasn't like, and like every time I would dread coming off stage. I'm like, here comes this guy. He's going to tell me something, and it's going to drive me nuts. He's going to have some kind of snooty comment. And so I will say this: if you're in a position of power and that there's a young musician in your life, please do not try to criticize them. Try to help them, try to encourage them, try to foster them, try to introduce them to other people, try to introduce them to your contacts. Try to say, like, I love that second. Just tell them what you liked. That last song is really good. You should write 100 of those. Something like that. If you have a young musician in your life, that is the way to encourage them. Because you don't want them to rest on their laurels. You don't want them to say, you're good enough. Because as an artist, you're really just never good enough. You got to keep working at your craft. But to encourage that, the way you encourage that is by telling them what is good about what they're doing, right? Because the funny thing about art is, like, it's very, not funny, it's like art is very personal. Like no matter how much you want to, unless it's like a very commercial project for like, you know, you're writing a spec ad for like Trulia.com or something, which I did. And I still took it personally when they rejected it. But you know, you want to encourage the good things about their playing, the good things about their writing, like find, because you can help them focus on it. Because the problem is when you're a young artist and you're a young musician, it's not that, it's usually not that you're too focused. It's usually it's too broad. You're trying to say too many things. When the wise sage or someone in a position of authority and experience helps you focus that. Let's focus on this one thing you're trying to say artistically. And this is not just in music. This is in photography and advertising and, you know, graphic design, whatever, painting, like whatever. Like, what is the one message, one theme you're trying to say? Let's own that. Let's try to sharpen that. And then when the market receives that and we get some reception from that, let's see what else you can say. But say one thing each time, especially as a young artist. As you get older, you can say wider and broader things because you'll have experience in life. And as you gain experience, you'll be able to say more poignant things and you'll be able to manage different themes with some nuance, because when you're young, you're kind of foolish with the way you say things, which is what makes it raw and exciting. But again, that's another concept here. On the subject of clones, what's my favorite clone? The Wampler Tumnus. I've heard it. I've never played it. I've heard it in person. My buddy had it, and I was like, oh, that sounds so good. I loved the sound of it. You know what? Here's what I want to try. Did you guys know this? So J Rocket, the dude who owns J Rocket, I think his name is Jay, actually. Maybe it starts with J, whatever. The point is, he used to work for Clown Guy. I can't remember his name, unfortunately. I did a video on it. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But he used to work for him as an engineer. So, like, if you want, like, a really authentic clone, the J Rocket is, like, ready to go. Like, that's pretty much a circuit for circuit. Now, I think that's like $250. So if you want to go lower, I think the Wampler Tumnus is, I think it's like 150 or 170. And then if you want to go lower, isn't the Morning Glory from JHS? I think that's 199 as well. So there's like those ones can be can all sound pretty close. Although the Tumnus was really good. It also kind of depends on the amp that you have. I found that, you know, in front of like a more scooped, like a Fender Blackface amp, like that sounds better than in front of a Marshall or a Vox. But I have limited experience too there, so like I really can't verify that. So a lot of it depends on the way it's going to push your amp, and then the guitar you're playing into it. I think a single coil into a Klon I prefer that sound. I think it's really good. Actually, a Telly into a Klon is one of my favorite sounds. But again, that's just a personal taste thing. Like I'm sure that there's a lot of different cool tones you can get. And I like the Klon actually as a light boost, right? Like as an always on. I think that's a really cool way to use it. That or like or a Dumble style pedal as an always on. Like my buddy Clay has that, and it's really very cool. The Gladius, right? What's it called? The Gladius? At Gladius SC from Cornerstone. Is that? Am I making that up? I can't remember the name of it. Morning Glory is a blues breaker. Got it. Okay, well then, the JHS one I think is also 200. Used an SD1 for many years as well. Mid punchy and smooth. Yeah, it's great, right? Like I'm gonna do a video on that and the DS1, SD1 and the DS1, because I think those are like, you can cover probably anything you would ever need to if you only $120 and all your distortion problems are solved, and you can stack them, which is fun. Suki's, I'm a good dude. Oh, that's very generous. Thank you. I mean, I just wish that someone was nicer to me when I was a younger artist, because it's so crushing when you hear that. You're like, oh my God, like I can't take this beating anymore. Okay, so segment number 2. A lot of times I hear like, oh, there's not a lot of good music anymore. And like the music that's written now is no good. It's like not, and especially if as guitarists, there's no guitar music anymore. It's really annoying. It's either like these neo soul guitar things that are like played over a loop, or it's like, you know, gent, or it's like Tim Henson, which is like you can't touch it. And it's like no one's writing like guitar rock music anymore. But so I was like, wait a second, I should find great guitar rock music and tell other people about it. Instead of me being like a little crybaby, I'm like, I can't believe music industry. I should say, hey, here's some great stuff. So This is a band from Nashville that I came across. They just like randomly popped up on IG for me, and they're not that big, but they're so good. I'm gonna play this song called Celine, and it sounds like Fleetwood Mac. Here we go. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna get a copyright strike for this, so we'll see.
She is the sister of the sun. She moves the water, and she says you are the only one.
Right, like Stevie Nicks, right?
She is the moon. And she talks to you. Oh, Celine.
Like that guitar is so good.
When the night breaks, all she wants to do is run away. And you can't hold her when the night breaks. All she wants to do is run away. Oh, Celine. Oh, Celine.
Right, this is like 70s rock, right? And they're a new band. This came out a year ago.
You cry.
Okay, so I'm probably gonna copyright for that, but it doesn't matter. So check out that band, Roanoke. They're at South by right now. So if any of you guys are in Texas, they're playing. I think they just played South by, but they're on their way touring back. If you can catch them, please do. They're very good, and their album. So it's interesting. You get to watch like their, the 2010s and teens. Like they were kind of more of a folk rock band, but now they've fully morphed into this like Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood, mystical rock band, which I love, and I think it's very cool. And there's a lot of great guitar. There's a great guitar solo in that track too. Roanoke, that song is called Celine. Check them out. I don't know them personally. I'm not being paid to talk about them. I just want to share cool music that has guitar riffs in it because we need to have more advocates for that. And it's interesting too. So that song, I believe, is it's in F minor, which there's like no songs in F minor, right? That's a great line too, right? It just goes down the minor scale, but it's like, but when you put it over the 6 7 to back to the 1, so that makes it a C sharp major 7, just a normal E flat, right? So it doesn't like do anything crazy, but it takes you a little bit. That's a cool chord to start off at the top of the chorus, and then it finally gets to the F sharp minor, and it gives that really like solid thing to stand on for the end of the hook. So there's a really cool song. It's written really well, and she can shred live. I mean, I haven't seen them live, but the videos of them live, like she just like nails it. Got great stage presence. You can tell they've been doing it for a while, though they look very young. Morning Glory is sweet as well. EQ behind a blues breaker can give you more mid punch and gain as well. Oh yeah, JHS built in the second mode. Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah, I should try that out. I need to try out one of the. Are you guys gonna buy the new Marshall vintage reissues? I mean, have you ever heard of a company taking that long to capitalize on a hot product? Like that blows my mind. Because so a lot of times in marketing departments, they have data analytics firms that are running data searches for them for SEO and stuff like that. And each week, the marketing, the director of marketing, or usually director of data and research, gets a report from this agency, and it says like, these are the top terms associated with your brand today. And YouTube videos for the music industry is very important. Like, that they were getting reports saying like, wow, they sure talk about blues breakers a lot. And they were tracking the price of blues breaker pedals on Reverb. Like after Continuum came out, what was that, 2007? And John Mayer was like, I used a blues breaker for all this whole album. They should have been like furiously like, we gotta rebuild it now. Like, it took them, what, 15 years? And they let everyone else build a pedal before them. It's like, well, who needs a Marshall Bluesbreaker now? They took 15 years to get to the table. It's just crazy to me. Like, if I was head of product and development, I would be not humiliated. That's rude. I'm sure they have a hard job, but I wonder what the reason was for not doing it. Because that to me was like slam dunk. The market is already telling you, give us this pedal. We want this pedal. And you got, they're putting out whatever they were putting out, a reissue JCM 800, Silver Jubilee, like the studio series. But it's like, their pedal division. Oh, maybe they didn't have a good pedal division at the time. You never know. I mean, it's a big company, so there's probably some reasons why they couldn't get done. Anyway, are you guys going to buy it? So, lastly, what time is it? Okay, 4:16. Let's wrap this up. Let's do a quick lesson. Let's work on. I'd like to create a throughway throughout all these lessons that I've been doing in these live streams. The first one was about writing, interesting chords when you play with your hand, right? So it's. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen. I'm playing here. And then the second one I did was about like creating a vamp and then soloing over your own vamp, where it's like. I'm not playing well right now, but the whole point is, so those are the things that we did before. And now let's do something where it's like creating like rhythm as a way to create like intensity and a way to create like intrigue, because I think that's something that's really important when you're playing guitar. Like it's not enough to just play, right? You also have to create something interesting. You're telling a story, even though you're not no words and there's no and it might not be something that they've heard before. And that's why the hardest thing. So imagine this: someone says, "Tell me a story I've never heard before," and make it interesting right away. It's like, okay, the less words probably better, right? So you'd have to say something like, "A man woke up one day, he didn't realize it would be the last day of his life." And everyone's like, "Whoa." They want to hear what happens next, right? So how are you creating that, like that premise melodically? How are you saying like, "Oh, I want to hear what happens next"? Now, a lot harder because you don't have words. You only have two things to play with, right? Melody and rhythm. Like the how fast or how slow the rhythm is, and how high or how low the pitch is, right? And then how those relate to each other. So I think it's easier to create something, some tension when you have more notes to play with, right? Because it's hard to create tension when it's just a single line. So no tension, right? There's a little bit of tension to make it when you make it a minor chord, right? That was a lot more tension. A lot of tension, right? So obviously, like just playing that, not interesting. So how would I get to that chord? How would I get there to make that and that was the last day of his life, right? So probably not that. There. So building up to it. Let's try that again though. I'm going to turn off this. See, so like that chord is interesting, right? But to make it interesting, you have to build up to that. You have to make the listener think like, oh, where's he going here? Now, what I could do to make it even more interesting is play less, right? Like when you hear someone play a great note quietly, softly, and like you're like, oh, what's going on here? So something like that. Just something to start thinking about, right? Like probably not that chord, probably not that transition, that arrangement that you're going to play. But start thinking about when you're playing and you're writing something. Let's say you're just a rhythm guy, right? And like as guitarists, we're mostly rhythm guitarists, right? We're not soloing all the time. Eddie Van Halen was mostly a rhythm guitarist when he played, right? He was the only guitar. He would have solos. But again, so like we're all rhythm guitarists first and foremost. And so how can you make that an interesting part of the song, right? Like you don't have to play everything. You don't have to play every note. You don't have to play every downbeat. How can you create that tension through leaving notes out, putting certain color notes on top of that? Just something to start thinking about when you're playing. And like let's say someone's like, hey, like we're playing, you know, this song is C, G, F, and then back to C. Like Bad Moon Rising, but it's not Bad Moon Rising because you have to play that exact. Let's say it's an original. So you'd have to... Right, and that's a lot more interesting than... And if you have a decent bassist, he's taking care of the rhythm. He's taking care of the low end. He's taking care of telling the audience, this is the chord. C, 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 G, G, F, C, C, C. Like if he's any good, he'll be playing something solid like that, which allows you to build just a little bit. Not build a skyscraper, but build a nice foundation for the singer or whatever the lead line to go over it, right? Great. Anyway, just like that. Any more questions? Should that be it? I'll end with another jam. That first one, I got really carried away. It was fun, but I got carried away. Bluesbreaker clone that your friend made. Oh, right on. See, I gotta get. I mean, I have that Joyo King of Kings, which is a version of the King of Tone, which is a version of the Bluesbreaker. So I think I need to get a little bit closer to like what a real Bluesbreaker sound is. What would you guys recommend for a good Bluesbreaker? I'm trying to think like who makes a good. Doesn't what's that company that makes the T4, the Protein, Brown Amplification? Don't they make a Bluesbreaker? I think so. Laundry Man, what's going on? Okay. There we go. Okay, so left side of Duelist Protein sound great. Westminster E89 is a dual pedal. 55 once. And then absolutely the best part about being a guitarist are those things, right? Just like you have the most amount of freedom out of anyone there. What's funny too that I've noticed when I play gigs, the guitarist has the most amount of gear, at least when you're playing like smaller gigs. Bassist is all backline. Drummer, at least in Nashville, drum set's there. Like sometimes drummers bring their snare and some cymbals. Singer, they bring their mic. But like guitarists, it's like, oh, you got to bring your pedal board and you got to bring your amp. You usually don't have a guitar amp. I'm like, wait a second. You guys have a bass amp. You guys have drum set. You guys have PA. What about me? I remember back in the day when we were touring, the guitarist, it was the best job to be a guitarist because like you just would have, one combo amp and then you had a couple pedals. But now I'm like, wait a second. I have the most gear now? Like, I didn't approve of this. I didn't say okay. I said, this isn't what I wanted. If I wanted the least, I mean, it's still hard to be a drummer though. I'll say that because you have the hardware bag and that thing usually weighs like 70 pounds. So that whole thing was played with the when I was playing. That was the Woodrow, man. That like fuzz sound on the Woodrow. I didn't like the Woodrow when I first started playing it. I thought it really didn't sound good, and now I love it. Now I'm like, okay, I get it now. It took me 3 months to like understand how to play it, but now that I know what it is not a clean machine. It is a gritty, vibey, fuzzy thing. It's a messy pedal. Now that I get that, I'm not trying to make it something it's not. It's just a nice, fuzzy, dirty pedal. Hey, Slide, what's going on, man? Tumnus Mini is your forever overdrive. Ooh, really? Prefer the lower mids to the real thing. Like all Klon type overdrives, it's best pushing a cranked non-master volume. Not so great into a clean amp. Yeah, that's yeah, I gotta see. You guys all have nice pedals. I gotta get nicer pedals. Guys, thanks so much for stopping by. It's 4:30. We're gonna call it. Next week I won't be doing a live stream. I'll be on vacation with my family. But the week after, we'll make up for it. We'll do 2 live streams the week after to make up for it. And if you guys have any live or guitar bands that are doing great guitar music that we should cover on the stream, send them to me, man. Like I really want this kind of little hang session that we're doing to help get eyes on like people that are writing cool guitar music, right? Like there's plenty of there's a million magazines and blogs for every other genre except for like really great, tasteful guitar-driven music. That's not metal. That's not hard rock. And I love that stuff. I love metal. I love hard rock. But it's like great, the stuff that we play. Come on. Like we know what we're talking about here. Okay, guys. Thanks again for stopping by. Be safe. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you in 9 days. Okay?